Awesome.
All right.
Hey guys, this is the book club discussion for the Thin Book of Appreciative Inquiry by Sue Annis Hammond. And we're just going to kind of talk about the different main points, what we got from it. So if Megan, if you want to start us off, kind of tell us what you got from the book, what you think appreciative inquiry means, and we'll each take turns.
All right. So appreciative inquiry, it was really interesting reading about it. I kind of have the ability to look at the negative of pretty much any situation. That's just something about me. So I think I could really benefit from this, like not just in a work setting, but like in my day-to-day life. To me, it's basically you focus on the positive instead of the negative, but it's not just mindless toxic positivity. There's more structure to it than that. It's basically trying to challenge traditional standards in organizations. And I really liked how they described organizations are supposed to be expressions of beauty and spirit.
Cool. Ed, do you want to go next, or you want me to go?
Yes, I'll go ahead. Yes, I agree. The way I took it was, instead of problem solving, looking for what works and continuing to improve on those and follow that path rather than look for the negative.
Cool. Yeah, I took away a lot of the same stuff y'all did. One thing that she stuck out to me saying was that if you look for problems, you're going to find problems. So if you look for what works and you apply that to other parts of the organization, a lot of the times you can bring what's good in one part to the other parts that are kind of feeling weak. But yeah, it's not mindless positivity, like you said, Megan. There is more of a structure to it. There's a big emphasis on the type of conversations that are being had, and the co-creation of the aspect. Everyone's involved with this process. I think that's is big.
It's really collaborative.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the big staples of it, is the fact that people can come together and create something together moving forward.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, right here on page 5, she says, by paying attention to problems, we emphasize and amplify them. This approach is consistent with the historical attitude in American business that sees human systems as machines and parts. I find that interesting, the whole the American approach to see people as human systems as machines and parts. That kind of goes along with like the cybernetic systems we covered early. It's just like a cog in the machine type thing. So I think appreciative inquiry would probably work best in like a complex adaptive system, or like a complex responsive processes that we've been talking about, because those see humans and human systems as I think like it gauges the interactions between them, and like that's where change comes from, you know, not just fixing a broken down part. You have to go in and diagnose what's wrong and find out what works and that type of thing.
Yeah. I guess we could talk about the assumptions of appreciative inquiry now. I'll go ahead and pull up that graphic.
Cool. Ed, that's on page 14 and 15. Oh, but she's pulling it. Never mind.
When you said cybernetic, that reminds me of Terminator, when it says endoskeleton, cybernetic human organism.
Yep.
Oh, should we talk about the 5D cycle first? That's what came first in the book.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
I think, or let me make sure. Or no, actually it was the assumptions came first. So let's talk about that.
So for anyone watching, we're going to be talking about the graphic on the right side, the assumptions of appreciative inquiry.
Yes. So I guess we should run through these.
Yeah. So I think the first one is kind of profound. In every society, organization, or group, something works. Immediately, that kind of just exudes positivity and the glass half full type thinking.
For sure.
optimism. And I think that's kind of what all of this is about. And appreciative inquiries, whenever you're taking that appreciative lens, you have to find out what works, because if you look for problems, once again, you're going to find them. And this is pretty much saying that somewhere in your organization, y'all are doing something well. That focus on that.
Yeah. And I think for assumption number 2, what we focus on becomes our reality. I remember reading about how there can be multiple realities or like multiple truths. And yeah, the whole like, we'll talk about it in a little bit, the 5D cycle, but it's when you collaborate with AI, you have to pick and choose what you're going to do. You have to kind of like vote on which reality y'all are going to end up on.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, it's you said the different realities. It's like a very constructionist, psychologist type of thinking, I think is, I think
Yeah.
that appreciative inquiry is a constructionist type of method, social constructionist, whatever.
Yeah, and they also, this might not really be related, but they talked about on page 19, like clinical seeming words like codependent, addiction, burnout.
Yep.
All of that is like deficit thinking, and AI is all about like overcoming that, like not thinking and deficit thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah. And then number 3 was reality is created in the moment. Oh, there are multiple realities, what I just said.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we kind of covered that one as well.
I'll do number 4. The act of asking questions of an organization or group influences the group in some way. That to me, that sounds like they're challenging the organization of the status quo, maybe.
Yeah.
Totally.
Asking for change, maybe creative, innovative ideas.
I think you're on the right track for sure. It's kind of, you don't want to be stagnant kind of thing, always ask questions, kind of break the mold, make sure you're moving forward. I get that.
Yeah.
So I guess on to assumption number 5 says people have more confidence and comfort to journey to the future or the unknown when they carry forward parts of the past unknown. I remember earlier in the book, they're talking about how you want to make these positive assumptions about your organization, what it's going to look like after you're done and all this, using a basis of what y'all already do well, because people, if they can recognize what they're doing well, they can bring that with them. They already know how to do that. So they can bring those parts of the past with them to the future, but only take parts of the past that work well. Don't take the negative parts, only take the positive parts. Kind of what I got from that.
Yeah, that reminds me of like the historical aspect of AI you mentioned earlier. There's an aspect that incorporates real experience and history. So yeah.
What could be an example of bringing the past, the good from the past forward? Do you have any examples offhand?
So I guess if you and your organization are trying to come up with a new strategy for like planning meetings or something, like this is how we're going to structure our strategy or our planning meetings in the future, because I guess it didn't work for you in the past, you would find parts of y'all's planning methods in the past that y'all really did well on, like you let each other speak, y'all didn't talk over each other, y'all had a certain structure to it that you thought was beneficial. While a lot of y'all's planning methods are going to change in this new way, you take some of those old methods with you if they worked, but you take out all the negative stuff, like people didn't show up to the meeting at all, or we didn't hold meetings at the same time every week. Kind of take all the bad out and only take the positive with you. I guess that's a loose example, only thing I could think of.
I think that works.
Oh,
and that's kind of goes into assumption 6.
Yeah, we just talked about assumption 6. It was nice. I think
And then
7 is a big one. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. It is important to value differences. I think this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my degree. You have to be able to work with people who think differently than you. It's how you get anything done.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this one is a very, I mean, just no nonsense. It's common sense. Like, be a good person, value differences. I mean, a lot of,
I mean, that brings the experience that I had in the military is that I met people from all parts of our country, from the South, the North, the East, the West, and they're all different. Not everybody's a Texas.
yeah, yep,
Mhm.
Texas, yeah. It's kind of a shocker to me when I first joined.
That's
Not
very
everybody
true.
barbecue, didn't know
right.
what picante sauce was.
No,
And then
yeah,
the
I think
last
that's
one,
good. Yeah, the last one, assumption 8, the language we use creates our reality. I think that goes into like, I don't know if you all have ever heard of like manifesting your reality. That's a
yeah.
big thing nowadays. People use vision boards. They do all types of stuff to envision what the reality is going to look like. And I guess a big part of that is the words you speak become the reality you live. So if you're always using negative language and negative metaphors and stuff like that, you're going to see a lot of negative in the world instead of seeing the positive. I think that's kind of what that is.
Right, here's a good example. I was substituting at one of the middle schools, and this kid was a leader, but he was causing trouble this particular day. He was the leader of the class, you could tell, and he was just causing trouble, and everybody was following. So we pulled him to the side, and told him, "Hey, we know you're the leader, but we want you to lead in the right direction."
Yeah.
Instead of saying, "Hey, you're not doing very well, you're being negative," we told him, "We know you're the leader, but lead in the right direction."
That's
Yeah,
a great example.
for sure. We're at 11 minutes right now, so let's get into the 5D cycle.
Okay.
All right.
That's on page 26.
Cool.
So what I thought about it was, it seemed kind of, I don't know if y'all have had to do this, but I've had to interview a lot of people from my classes. And they mentioned that this is kind of similar to some research processes, but you had to identify themes through this cycle, which is something you do in the research process when you conduct interviews. And yeah, I guess let's just run through. Do you guys want to run through each cycle or each part of the cycle?
Hey, for sure. So the first stage of the 5D cycle is define. Basically defining, the defining stage is talking about looking at what asking, says the act of asking questions of an organization or group influences the group in some way. You're trying to define what you're going to inquire about. Basically choosing the topic. I guess that's trying to figure out, pinpoint what the problem area is that you're trying to fix, not fix, but help in this cycle. Says in a large scale appreciative inquiry called an AI summit, choosing and refining topics will probably take about 2 days. Thought that was a good thing to say. I guess I don't.
I think the define is pretty straightforward. You definitely have to make sure you pick the right topic, which would involve collaboration and communication.
Yeah. I guess the defining is all about figuring out what topic you want to talk about in your appreciative inquiry.
I think discover how it works, indeed, how practical it is. Until you do it, it also helps to remind people. Identify the best of what is.
Yeah.
And there's like the interview process. So I guess like you're interviewing your team.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I guess, I mean, you start the interview process and discover, and then you move on.
And it does say in discover, you use the negative information to your
Yeah,
benefit. If you have an interview, he only responds with negative information, which you're definitely going to have in any different type of organization. There's always going to be a negative Nancy. You're supposed to ask miracle questions, which I thought was awesome about this part. If a miracle occurred and you showed up to work tomorrow with all problems gone, what would be the team working at its best look like? Or whatever the inquiry is about. So basically, by bringing that up, you give them no way out. They have to give you something that y'all are doing well.
yeah, you kind of have to kill them with kindness.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess that's kind of a way to sidestep anyone who doesn't want to give up what you're actually doing right. I think the discover process is literally discovering what people think they do well in the organization.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, Megan, you want to do dream, I guess?
Yeah, dream. So, dreaming is like when you're looking at your findings, kind of. What you interview your team, you discover what they think, and you know, you have to dig deeper into it. It's part of the investigation. You want to like dream big, I guess, about it. And it can get messy. It's dream was like my favorite part, but it's kind of hard to explain. I guess just it gets you into the design where you get to talk about your provocative proposition statements.
Yeah, it's
but
like
you have
divulging
Wonder and imagination.
Yeah, like divulging all the information that y'all generated between all the different interviews and trying to find out what themes are there, what patterns are there, and
exactly.
try to figure out what your organization can look like if all of these themes were coming to fruition, and like what it would actually look like if everything planned out like y'all wanted it to.
Right. Imagine 5 years from now, what does your job look like?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, like questions like that.
I guess I'll take it off with design. The design stage is all about creating that plan, that action plan, how y'all are gonna create this manifestation of the dream that y'all just came up with. This part of the 5 stages deals heavily in co-creation and cooperation. Like this is the part where many of the people have to come together in a group and maybe pair off if it helps and figure out ways to make this dream a reality. This design is literally you're designing the roadmap to the end goal. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this is where you come up with that action plan.
Yeah, and you want to ask questions that are relevant to the history of your organization. So like at the end of this book, someone commented on like the list of example proposition statements, provocative proposition statements, and they said it seemed really normal and bland. But that's just because they don't know the inner workings of this specific organization's needs. So like it might look like you're not being that daring, but you just have to be careful in the like wording of your statement, because it's literally creating your structure for your delivery or destiny.
Yeah. See, I think the last one is on page 38, deliver/destiny. One of you guys want to explain it?
I got 34.
Oh, you got the virtual version though. Maybe it's different.
Oh yeah, it might be different. Just deliver destiny.
Oh, okay.
I'll just say that I liked the word destiny over delivery or deliver, because they mention it in the first paragraph about how deliver sounds like there's an end to this process, but the whole point of AI is that it's a continuous learning cycle that never ends.
Yeah, I took that same thing. The circle, the cycle is much more than just a representation on paper. I think it's, like you said, it's nature to be continuous, like a continuous process.
Yeah, it's kind of like aligns with nature. I like that analogy.
Yeah. What do you think about the Deliver Destiny, Ed?
Uh, It's ongoing and meant to lead to more appreciation as time goes on. Sounds like that positive that we've been talking about.
Yep.
Instead of looking for the negative, look for the positive and stay with it and improve on it.
Cool. Yeah, I
Agreed.
agree. We're pretty well past 15 minutes, so I guess let's give a brief conclusion, kind of talk about what we talked about, and wrap it up, and then we'll post it on the discussion board.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to just talk about the last section, how AI is valuable for business, because, you know, a lot of people might like hear AI and like, oh, you just want to be positive all the time. How is that going to make your company make any money? But it's according to the research, you know, happy customers, or I mean, happy employees leads to better companies. So I personally think AI has a lot of business value.
I agree with you. I think a big part of what makes it so appealing to the individual employee is that it makes them a big part of the decision-making process. And when you as the individual employee feel like your opinions are being considered when just like important decisions are being made, that makes it so much easier for you to buy into the work you're doing, because you feel like you're being recognized and you're being heard. So I'm right along with you. I think it's huge if your business comes up with an AI process, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And my look on it is, I think be the devil's advocate, that the AI sounds good. And it probably works in some organizations, but sometimes it's not so good in other organizations. For example, the military. I'll just keep bringing up the military and athletics. I know everything's changing to the positive, but sometimes you have to be, you have to be a little assertive. But and an old timer like me switching to the AI, I've tried it with the girls softball and it kind of works, but since they're my kids, it's a little bit hard for me to do that for my kids. But for other kids, yes, I definitely have to do that with other people's kids. I just have a hard time doing it with mine.
I can see
Well, I
that.
appreciate your insight.
It's like it kind of depends on the power structure. If it really has to be an authoritarian, like I mean, like if you're in boot camp, your drill sergeant is not going to be talking about all of the things you're doing well. That's not what they're doing. That's not what they're there for. They're here to, like you said, indoctrinate you into thinking one way, and I get that. So thank you for being devil's advocate. It makes sense that appreciative inquiry isn't for every single organization out there, but for most of the civilian world, I think it could be a pretty good way to transition into a different type of change management.
You know, they did mention sports in this book, about how the mental part of sports is just as important as the physical part. But that's just, I agree with that. That's just my opinion though.
Yeah, mental sports is 70% mental, 30% physical.
Yeah.
Cool guys. I guess that serves as a good wrap up. I need to stop the recording so people in class don't hate us for putting out a 20-minute video. But
Right.
cool. It was nice talking to you guys. I guess we will convene in the discussion section.
All right. Nice meeting y'all.
Yeah, nice meeting you. Y'all have a good one.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
You too.